All right, everyone. Good morning once again, and welcome to our webinar. Our topic this morning is leveraging real-time data quality to level up your completions performance. My name is Alisher, and I'm the Director of Business for Drilling and Completion, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Today, we will have an in-depth demonstration of our completions platform and show you how you can streamline analysis of your performance data in order to improve operational efficiencies, optimize your new well costs, and accelerate spud-to-sales times. As a reminder, everybody can submit their questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A feature within the Zoom interface. We will address all questions following the presentation. I would like to now introduce our presenter, Michael Lowder, Drilling and Completions Engineer. Michael has over 7 years of experience in drilling and completions, working for Oxy in the San Joaquin and the Permian basins. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. Michael recently co-authored an article for the American Oil and Gas Reporter on leveraging real-time completion data to boost operational performance in the Haynesville Shale. With that, I would like to pass it over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Alisher. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to going through our completions platform. So just to begin, just a quick agenda of what I'll be going through today. So one, setting the stage with what actually is Corva Completions and what sets us apart. Next, a quick track record to show where we've gone, where we've come from, and where we're going to be going. Then actually diving into the software for a software demonstration of our product. After that, we'll go into some of our enterprise solutions of how we integrate with other platforms and softwares. Then quick update on some future development, and then some time for questions and answers. So really to begin and to set the stage, what is Corva Completions and what really sets us apart from everything else? So how we set ourselves apart is, and we're not just a frac visualization or type of analytics. And really you could see all the various things we do here, but what I really want to focus on are these 4 buckets and components we have right here. So from the aspect of a real-time platform, our ability to be comprehensive and to integrate between drilling data, frac data, wireline data, and even drill out, all in the same platform, all easy to view, easy and actionable. Data quality sets us apart. So we have both integrated activity detection to automatically automate QA/QC processes of picking stages, picking times, as well as our operations team that's comprised of 50 different individuals that all have industry experience, industry experts, and are able to QA/QC the data via an automated way and in an actual manual way. Of course, we have integrated analytics to check our KPIs, all of those from that standpoint. And one other piece is our enterprise solution. That's another thing that sets us apart, is our ability to be sticky and integrate with other platforms and tools such as Microsoft Teams or Slack, as well as analytics tools like Power BI, Spotfire, and then as well Wellview. Also, one thing I wanted to mention at the end of the presentation or the webinar, please submit any questions you have in the Zoom interface and we will address those at the end. Thank you. So next, our track record, where we have come from and where we're going. So the completions platform started went commercial September of 2019. And from that time period to where we are now, we have completed, or about 1,000 wells have been completed using Corva. We're monitoring more than 20% of the frac fleets in the domestic US, in Canada, Argentina, even had some operations in Alaska. So a wide breadth and solid market share of operations from that end. We're also a preferred enterprise solution from a wide array of E&P companies. So some of the largest in the world to some of your more private equity mid-cap companies. So that wide range. And then also we have the ability and we're flexible enough to work with a wide array of vendors. So here's just a quick example of over 15 pressure pumping vendors we've worked with. We've also worked with about the same amount from the wireline side, even various coil vendors, workover rigs, so on and so forth from that standpoint. Next, I want to go into our live web demo. So here, this is actually the software, the Corva Completions platform as a whole. And just really to set the stage, what Corva is it is an app-based platform. So all these tiles you see right here, all are different applications we have on the completion side. We have 35 of them, and they all range from various frac, wireline, coil tubing drill out, stick pipe drill out, all apps of various purposes and applications from that standpoint. As well, our base view is what's called a dashboard view. So each of these up at the top here, these are different dashboards, and in those dashboards are a configuration of apps. So it's up to the user how they'd like to have those configured. And what we'll show today in this quick demo is for the real-time, some of the real-time apps as well as our analytics apps. One other thing I wanted to cover before diving in is how we integrate and get the data from location. So really, we're just tapped into the frac van, the wireline logger, pump down, as well as if we're doing monitoring of drill outs, coiled tubing cab, or the workover EDR to then get the data from the field, send to our cloud, and then populate these apps. So now we want to actually go through the individual applications that we have here in the platform. So first and foremost is our treatment plot application. For our treatment plot, it's not only just a 1-second real-time view of actual operations you're seeing from the field, but we have analytics features behind it as well, along with our activity detection. So one thing I wanted to bring up and show, and I mentioned it on our first slide, is our integrated activity detection. So of course you have your real-time view, virtually any channel from the frac van able to be put on the plot or via the real-time view right here. But what sets us apart is the ability to separate out based on the real-time streams of data. So as you see at the bottom, based on rate injection or rate start, proppant injection, breakdown, ISIP, our system is automatically able to detect how much time we're spending pressure testing, pumping pad, fracking, or pumping flush, and a big use of value is when pumps are off. So if we have, possible iron leak and a shutdown in the middle of the stage, we can automatically detect that, and then that feeds in, via the real-time stream into our analytics and able to view that. On top of just having, the analytics based off of this, we can also look back and view and compare and analyze our stages very quickly and very easily. So one thing, all these apps have what's called a mode selector. So I could switch between pad level view, single level view very seamlessly, very quickly. But let's say, for instance, I want to, mitigate frac hits, for instance. So we have the ability via the frac van to actually display and show offset well pressures. So it's coming through the frac van. We could actually map it to our streams and show this information from here. So here I'm able to see my offset well pressure. So if I'm trying to monitor a frac hit, if I want to set alerts, which I'll talk about in a minute to make sure I don't exceed certain pressures or anything like that, I could have that ready to go, fire, and then be in that safe zone to make sure we're not having communication between wells. As I'd mentioned, there's a quick and easy way to be able to visualize and go back and look at previous stages. So right now we have what's called an active view. We also have an active last 10, 15, 30-minute, and then a custom view. So what these do is really give the user the experience of what they'd have right in the frac van. They have zoomed in view to where they could see right then and there all the nuances, all the slight pressure responses that they'd be seeing in the van. They could see it outside. And we've had customers use this from the standpoint of remote treating, where removing personnel from location for safety purposes, monitoring multiple jobs to become more efficient with that. But as well, we can look back at previous stages. So as I talked about, let's say I want to look at my last 5 stages. So I can pull that up, pull my last 5 stages, view it. So I now have all my last 5 stages for a particular well. But let's say I want to overlay those stages. So I could now analyze and see pressure rate responses stage to stage, well to well. So I could see how well my fracs are. And that's what this green area is right here, an optimal pressure zone. So am I staying where I want to be in terms of that, or am I outside? So it's very seamless and very quick to be able to visualize and show this information. A couple other features. So we do have an open-ended REST API. So the ability to extract this QA/QC information to be pushed into other features, such as a spot fire tool, such as that. We'll go through that in a little bit as well. Our well comparison app, what this does, so just like pulling in from an analytics standpoint, our pressures, our rates, stage by stage, well by well, but what it compares it to is all consumables pumped. And what makes this so easy and effective is the fact that we're automatically able to calculate via either a volume or concentration all of our consumables being pumped. So on the fly, I could tell via this heat map, am I on the higher range of pumping or lower range? So am I using a lot more acid on one stage versus another, or a lot more FR on one stage versus another? So how this becomes important and useful is that customers can quickly able to detect and see, are there any trends or things I'm seeing, am I using more FR than I should be or less versus my pressure rate response? We've had customers use this to where, they have 2 different company men day and night, and one has their FR set at one set point, one has it set at another. The night guy had it set at a higher set point. Due to that, and actually they're able to track and trend this relatively quickly. They'd see higher versus lower usage, higher versus lower usage. They were able to detect, see, investigate, and actually have a process change to make sure, hey, we are not seeing the pressure rate response that's adequate with really needing this extra FR. Why don't we bump it back down? As a result, the stages were still able to be pumped safely and efficiently, and a lot of chemical costs were mitigated from that standpoint. So, and really what we'd like to present here is with all these, especially an app like this, it's just the actionability and being able to see this, from before, on the completion side, there's so much data that's coming in and being fed and sent, an engineer's way, that there's really a big difficulty in a way to make sense of all of it. And this just enables that learning curve, that ability to measure, highlights what you need to do a lot more quickly. Another application similar to this, and this is really demonstrates the ability of how we're a comprehensive platform. So, how we started out actually on the drilling side of things, and we can leverage that data to actually help us in our completions. And even from my previous experience, this would have been a very, very useful app. So either on a design or actual basis, I could display and show, let's say, I have a lateral length, my TBD over the lateral length, my gamma, my MSE, various values, show other drilling parameters like dogleg, severity, flow. But what it's showing is, it shows me either on a design basis or, in this case, an actual basis, what I had pumped stage by stage, separated out on my measured depth versus the well. So here I could compare, my pressure, my rates with my drilling data. So where this really comes into play is when we look on a stage design basis, where we want to see how I'm looking from this standpoint. So I have design, and let's say, for instance, and this actually happened to me before, where the frac fleet was waiting on drilling to get off location. They were having some trouble with their well, and as a result, for all the pertinent documentation I needed before starting that job. So what had happened was drilling had trouble actually staying in zone via over a few stages. So let's say stages 25 to 28, they actually went from one zone to the next. And in the area we were in, it was they're very, very different pump schedules required, FR set points to make sure the job got pumped away effectively. With this, and again, I have the knowledge and the information in front of me, and it's very helpful to know this up front before designing my pump schedules, because again, it's very quick. We have to move fast. Frac fleet's on standby, all of that. And I didn't know that up front. The data was around, but there was no way for me to find it, analyze it, see it in time to have that from that standpoint. And as a result, if I had something like this, I could have seen, hey, I'm actually out of zone over these stages. My gamma, my MSC, it's all indicative of some of these issues I could have seen. I could have tweaked my pump schedule, avoided a screen out, avoided a whole day of downtime. Now, conversely, and we've had customers use this as well on a stage actual basis, to where, they're comparing their actual volumes and usage. Again, they could see, hey, I'm using a lot more FR on this stage versus this stage. Why is that? Well, hey, looks like, okay, I had pretty, high gamma, my MSE, all of that. I was, kind of in the lower portion of the lateral over this section, so on and so forth. But we've had customers use this where they notice the similar trends on one point of the lateral, so maybe more near the toe. When they're going closer to the heel, they're seeing similar gamma signatures, MSE. They were actually able to leverage what they knew and say, okay, I had to pump all this FR on this stage. Maybe, I'll change how my pump schedule's ramped up on these three stages. They actually did that, and they're able to get those jobs pumped away a lot more effectively and quickly, causing them and allowing them to be more efficient, finish the job a lot more soon. Top of that, on our real-time stream, so we have our wireline traces, very similar in terms of what we have on the frac side, where any channel from the logger, so current, line speed, tension, CCL voltage. We also have the ability to pull in and incorporate pump down information. So that ability as well, can tie that in, use alerts for it, as well as our integrated activity detection. So, we will know exactly when you're running a hole, pulling out a hole, when we're actually firing our gun, so on and so forth, able to see all that information. And then as well, Wireline Parameters app. So it just takes us a step further, where we can actually know which current stage we're on, whether we're running a hole, pulling out of the hole. We can actually track via our wireline location, this red ball here, as we're going down the wellbore path. So we can track with dogleg severity. If we're seeing, a certain area where we may have some trends or we may have to pump a little harder, we could track that, use that, correlate that from that standpoint. One thing I wanted to show, and really correlates on our wireline side, is our alerts functionality. So we have also incorporated the ability to set custom alerts for any app, any real-time stream, whether it's design data, so on and so forth. So what we have the capability of doing, these are just a few examples, but, from offset pressure warnings, pump down tension, pull out a whole line speeds, frac-based alerts to track and detect possible plug slips, possible screen outs with increasing pressure, all of these for hazard avoidance. We have a lot of these stock alerts available, but we also have, as part of our alerts engine, the ability to create custom alerts for customers. So I've helped develop some of these and work with our customers to have them so they have this functionality. So it's great in terms of how to turn them on or turn them off. It's very quick and easy. You can tie them to any particular frac fleet you're looking at, and then as well, however you want to receive that alert. So if you want it via text message, email, or what we call a push notification via our mobile app that works with either iOS or Android platforms. And we'll give a quick demo of that actually after the software demo. But again, very quick and easy to show this information, again, detect trends and really pulls this whole comprehensive nature of everything together to make sure avoid hazards, be more efficient in our operations. Wanted to cover as well some of our analytics type applications. So some of our applications like pad metrics, so automatically calculates 4 key pumping KPIs, stages per day, volume of fluid, proppant, as well as pumping hours per day. It'll highlight and break out all of your wells stage by stage. If you highlight another over, so let's say I click on pumping hours, it'll actually designate this information. And I'll show in a minute how this could be very useful. And again, how things are so configurable in Corva, be able to organize dashboards, resize, shape them, and then we could recreate reports off of those as well. One thing I wanted to mention as well, so we could pick any range of time. So if I'm looking at a custom range, I want my last 5 days, 10 days, I could track my fleet performance over any of those ranges. But something new we've developed here at Corva is actually a big change to this application. So as you see right now, we actually have the stages split by day, but depending on the customer, certain customers want to view this, whether they're, where the stage ends, that's how it counts towards their metric. So that is actually a newer feature we have here in Corva. So one thing I wanted to mention as well, we always on all these apps have a settings feature, which where you can demonstrate and visualize, if I want to establish goals like the stages per day I want to achieve, pumping hours, so on and so forth. But at the bottom, we can actually dictate how the metric is calculated. So if I want it split between days, or if I want it based on when the day ends or when it begins, I could show that and visualize that. So I click that there, and now they're all integers, all separated out in that means. As well, one thing I wanted to touch, so I said all of our information can be pulled through an API, pushed into other tools, sanitized QA/QC data, but we also have the feature to export any of these apps as a CSV file. So if an engineer wants to look at them, do their own graphs, analytics, they have that feature as well. Our time analysis just really takes what we have on pad metrics in terms of analytics, takes it a step further. So we're able to visualize and show any information where anytime we pumped a stage, anytime we had a transition time or swap over time, frac to wireline, wireline to frac, it'll actually visualize, calculate that information automatically for you. It'll also automatically calculate anytime you're not pumping on the pad. And as well, anytime where we have NPT, we have the ability to bring in static data along with all these real-time streams of data. So for, reports or design data, you'll see that in a couple of our apps, how we can leverage that in, pull that in, QA/QC, and compare. So for like stage design versus actual. But way this is, and the value added on this app is the critical path analysis. So what we have in the gray right here is it's demonstrating and showing anytime we're waiting on an offset well. So if we're having to wait on frac or wait on wireline, it'll actually designate that, show that information here. So very useful in terms of operational planning, KPIs. So again, if we're noticing a trend where we're consistently having to wait on wireline, either due to misruns or maybe as we go down, from the toe to the heel, the stages are getting more quick, less pressure, so on and so forth, less friction. We're able to get those pumped away, but our wireline times are still kind of handcuffing us. It's a limiter, so to speak. If we have that, we could actually tweak maybe our wireline run parameters to then, again, be more efficient, track it in the middle of the well or middle of the pad versus, down the road where we didn't have this data available, could not see this information. Top of that, graphical and tabular view. So breaking out all of your analytics, so per day or per any range of time, however we'd like to see it, frac, wireline, any of our swap overs, all of that information. I touched on how the activity detection system worked. So again, these are just applications that break out this information in terms of how they are stage by stage. So again, very useful if I'm looking on the frac side, if I'm noticing stages where I had, multiple in a row where we had major shutdowns due to iron leaks, the pumps were off, I can have that information and pull it together and see it and visualize it. So again, let's say we're doing contract negotiations or we're trying to look at other things, I can have this readily available to show, hey, it's looking like we're having a lot of issues with our iron leaks, a lot of pump failure, so on and so forth. What can we do to get this fixed? So again, just ways to track and benchmark our performance. So from that side, on the frac side, so this information here, any stages could view this. We also have start and end times. So all of these are automatically timestamp pulled from the real-time streams of data, your average max rates, your total pump time. Really a big way this comes into value, and I'll show you in a minute with our integration with some of reporting software like Wellview, where this information could actually be pushed from Corva automatically to populate platforms like Wellview, to where that whole process is done. So again, takes that burden off of the folks in the field, filling that information out so they can focus on operations. We also have this on the wireline side. So here as well, any of the face time on the wireline. So whether we're running in hole, pulling out a hole, both vertical and lateral sections, we'll actually break it out so we can see how much time we're spending in free fall, how much time we're spending actually pumping down. And then as well, all of your information, your speed in, speed out, total time per run, able to visualize all of that. Touched on our stage design versus actual feature. So one thing we do, besides all of the calculations we do in real time based on the real-time streams of data, we also bring in the design information. So we can have apps such as this, to where we could actually see and compare, for all my chemicals pumped, all my consumables, how close am I from design to actual? So it'll automatically calculate as the stage is being pumped, how much am I off by design? Am I short, 3%, or in some cases I may have, overflushed the well, or I may have, pumped a lot more FR than I planned. So it'll actually designate this, 50%, 90%, so on and so forth. One thing too, we also bring in strap value. So what the actual frac vendor reports as what was pumped, as well as our calculated. So you could see it here graphically broken out as, and then, very quickly. So I could also look stage by stage or the job as a whole. And I could also see it broken out in a tabular format. Even here, straps, calcs, and the design. So how this has really come into play, a lot of customers use this in terms of, when they're looking back and making sure things were pumped to design in terms of tickets, they could visualize this and cross-check this as an example. So we've had customers to where they'll look at this and they'll notice, hey, the straps are pretty close to my calcs and as well to the design. I feel comfortable signing this ticket. That process could be moved along. As well, we have some customers where they give the vendor actually access to Corva as well. And I'll touch on that with some of the permissions and ability we could do there. But everyone's seeing the same information. So a lot of these disputes, a lot of the resolution of tickets, it's helped a lot because they can all see the same information. They see, hey, I agree with this, I don't agree with this. Makes it very quick to look and see that from there as well. Here we have our swap over times app. Really just breaks out our transition times, frac to frac, wireline to wireline, so on and so forth, and throughout the course of the pad. So I showed it on time analysis, but here we can just have it broken out to where we see it on a graphical format, see our averages, see if we're meeting our goal, not meeting our goal. Could do it in the last 24-hour basis, especially if you want to do type of mooring reports. Look at just frac swap over wireline. This is also when the pad mode comes into play, where I can click pad mode. It'll show me every single transition that actually happened over the course of the job. But really how this is helpful and important. So graphically and tabular format, I can break out and see my swap over times day versus night together very quickly. So very quick tool to trend and compare, is one crew outperforming the other? And if so, again, it enables, a lot more quickly, because it's all calculated on the fly near real time, the ability to target, investigate, see certain, trends and processes and change them, early enough to where we can make this more efficient a lot more quickly, add the value to the operations, do all of that from that standpoint. Touched on how we can record NPT, but as well here, we have it both broken out a day and night format. We could actually see what the NPT was on. We could see it graphically and in a tabular view. So how much time was spent day versus night. Again, look at it single well or pad mode from that standpoint. These apps right here, and really why I want to cover these are actually built via an engine called our SQL Visualizer query. So, why I wanted to show this, so we do have what's called the Corva Dev Center. So the ability for customers to use the Corva architecture, some of their own personal intellectual property to develop apps, develop UIs, all that from that standpoint. But really what these are just kind of a quicker version and ability to show that information in a Corva visualization. So for instance, if a user wants to track pad cost, if they want to track, in this case, fuel usage, if they have a biofuel fleet and they want to see substitution percentages, duration to get the max rate, average horsepower per stage, if they're trying to track for contractual purposes, we could see all that information and view it and visualize it, which is very useful, very important from that standpoint. A couple other things just on the software demonstration I wanted to show. Ability to add apps. So like I said, all of these dashboards are purely configurable. I could add as many apps as I'd like, and it'll take us to our Corva App Store. So we could actually see from each of these standpoints. Every segment's broken out by drilling or completions. Here are 35 plus completions apps. Very quick, easy. It gives a nice description of each app. I could add the app. I just tie it to a particular frac fleet, and then it will load on my page. I could resize, reshape these apps. All of that from that standpoint just makes it very configurable and user-friendly. I also touched on the ability to create reports. So like I said, since all of these dashboards are configurable, they're calculating information, we have the ability as well to generate scheduled reports from them. So in this case, and something that has been very useful for me as a completions engineer, every morning before a morning call, we had to create, use basically a macro or Excel macro book to generate all of these KPIs and figures. Beauty of this is if I wanted to, let's say I have a meeting every morning at 7 and I wanted to generate this at 6 in the morning because that's my daily range, I could do that, put in a distribution list of recipients, click save, and it'll automatically generate a PDF screenshot of all my information sent out to everyone on my team that I'd like to have sent out to. And again, I'd have all that information available and visualized for the purposes of a morning report. So again, saving all that time, adding more value from that standpoint. So now go back into our slide deck and cover a few other pieces. So now what I'm going to actually show is our mobile demo of the Corva platform for our account manager, Philip Rogers.
My name is Philip Rogers, Key Account Manager here at Corva. When you log into Corva's mobile application, you'll have access to your real-time treatment plots, pad metrics, time analysis, and even your NPT events. The beauty of this application is that you're able to mirror exactly what you see at your office on your computer directly on your phone anywhere in the world. Corva's Feed is a communication tool that lets you communicate in real time with your team, utilizing Corva's applications, as well as referencing those in real time. Corva also has a powerful alerts engine that you can utilize right from your mobile app in real time via push notifications and/or text messages.
Next, we're going to have a video from Cody Bird, our Director of Operations, to go through our Operations Center.
Hi, I'm Cody Bird, Director of Operations at Corva. I'm here in our Operations Center in Houston, Texas, where every day your wells undergo a 140-point QC check. Our operations team consists of over 50 members that specialize in both drilling and completions. Our team is here 24/7 to answer any questions you may have. All you have to do is hit that little blue button in the bottom right-hand corner of Corva, and our team will answer within 25 seconds.
So now we're going to cover some of our enterprise platform solutions, some of the ways we integrate with other platforms and services. One of which that we've developed is our Wellview integration. So what we've done with Wellview is developed a plugin with them and with Peloton to integrate with Corva and the data. So as I touched on in the demonstration, some of the things that we can do from that standpoint. So as you see here, we actually have the ability from this standpoint, there's a plugin. So how this would work is we go through here, it's requested through Peloton. It's already a set feature that if you ask us from them, they'll be able to visualize and see it. And then when you click on the add-ins right here, you'll have a Peloton Corva import feature. So when you click on that, then what you'll do is it'll come out. It'll then out from, let's say, a stimulation report summary. It'll automatically pull that information from Corva via the API. You'll actually click OK, and then it'll actually populate all of your stimulation intervals. So all your stages, your start, end times, interval number, so on and so forth, all of those that are pertinent from that standpoint. So with that plugin, it'll pull from it and then actually generate. So this is a little copy of the report itself, be able to see it when you generate the PDF portion of the report. So on that end and what we have, the stimulation intervals are actually automatically, and that's been worked to integrate with Peloton and Wellview. So the plugin, it'll directly pull from Corva to pull and push that or put that information there. On top of that, we're adding some other features into the platform to enhance what we have, at least for Wellview. And the whole point of this is for automation, to automate what the folks in the field have to do on a daily basis, since there's a lot of time and a lot of effort that's spent putting this data in. And the big piece of this too, we really want to emphasize is, again, in terms of making sure the data is correct going in, it's QA/QC. That's what our team here does, and make sure that it's properly QC, that it's sanitized, quality data that's going in. And via this, it just automates that process. Again, no more need for manual entry of what we have. So again, our stimulation intervals that are currently available, but we are working on ways, especially for time summary. So comments that are made the daily operational comments. We're going to add that as a feature into Corva that could be input into Corva and then be pulled from Corva and then placed into Wellview. As well, on top of that, a lot of plug and perf information is recorded. So having every individual perforation depth actually automatically already input into Corva, and then from there, again, Wellview's able to pull it and then post it in from that standpoint, automatically generating a report, reducing all of that manual entry that's already having to be done. Another integration measure is via our Microsoft Teams. So using the Corva alerts engine, so I talked about that briefly. So a variety of alerts can be set, whether, and they don't have to necessarily be hazard avoidance or anything of that nature. They could be end of stage alerts that fire. They could be, like I said, they could be hazard avoidance, where if you want to make sure, I'm not creeping up on pressure too much, or FR usage, so on and so forth. Very wide array of how we could use that and show that information. But this is just an example of what we've done to really integrate with Teams and show from that standpoint. So using the alerts engine, every Teams channel actually has an email address associated with it. If you click on Teams, and I know a lot of our customer base, they use Teams as, outside of just, the reporting feature using Wellview is kind of the ground truth of where the information is put in. They also use Teams as a way to update, between the field and the office engineers. Whatever is going on in the field, they'll update it, they'll send pictures, so on and so forth. What we can do via this, though, especially from, updating on, this is just the example of an end of stage report, we can actually tie Corva, so the alert, to that email address that Teams provides. From that standpoint, the alert can be fired and it will actually post in the Teams channel. So this is an example of an end of stage report that was posted into a Teams channel. Once it's posted into the Teams channel, two different things take place. So at the bottom of the screen, there's a view alert feature. If you click on that, we have the ability, so based on any alert, and I showed how we can create dashboards, so on and so forth, we can actually create dashboards that tie to alerts. So again, if I have an end of stage, I can actually set up a dashboard to where it is essentially an end of stage report dashboard where I have a treatment plot. I can put my stage design versus actual to show my consumables pumped. I can show activity detection, show my start end times, all that information. So what'll happen is that dashboard's correlated to the alert. So when I click on this view alert, it'll take me directly to a dashboard into Corva showing all that information that's comprehensive of the end of stage. Top of that as well, it'll also generate a PDF screenshot of that same dashboard. So again, if I don't have necessarily internet access and I just want to view it in a PDF view, you can actually have a PDF view via the Teams channel. So all of that is comprehensive and you're able to see it and view it and visualize it via that standpoint. So it makes it very quick and easy, like I said, doing end of stage reports. But again, we could do other means such as, if I had a potential screen out and I want a quick way to view the data to see what actually happened, maybe the alert fired, and then I could click on the view alert and it'll show me my treatment plot and how my pressure just like shot up or what all happened. It'll show me kind of all the parameters, what I saw, so then I can investigate, analyze. Same with the plug slip, same type of information. We can do that as well. Another tool, and I didn't have enough room to show it on this page, but it's very similar if we have any customers that use Slack. So Slack, just similar to Microsoft Teams, if that's a preferred communication channel between, inner office or office in the field. Every Slack channel also has an email address associated to it. So same concept, we just tie the alert to that, can link to it, and then it will fire, and then you can view all your information very quickly from that. On top of this as well, we have the ability to integrate with Spotfire. So currently, what we do here is via Corva's API, Spotfire can actually pull the data from that. And the big thing, and what really helps from this standpoint is, and I'll touch on it, later, but the ability to, integrate all of these various data streams, whether they're frac, wireline, drill out data, all of that, combine it, sanitize it. So the big thing too, it's good data, it's QA/QC data that then can quickly be pulled, and even how it's pulled via Corva or from Spotfire, pulled into Spotfire from Corva, is it can automatically be pulled. It doesn't have to be a CSV file generated, sent out, automatically put in, all of that. It's automatically pulled. It can be continuously. So again, can integrate from that standpoint to populate Spotfire dashboards with, again, the QA/QC data that Corva is providing. It makes it very easy. And again, just kind of a quick example of how that could look. We're also testing the ability to do it with Power BI. We currently have not yet, but we believe via our team of experts we have here that we could be able to do it through a similar means where Power BI can pull from Corva's API to get that QA/QC sanitized data. So now just wanted to cover a few future developments, and really a thing to preface with what we have here at Corva is, with what we do and something we pride in is the ability to develop a lot of new features and functionality. And really the completions platform as a whole, as I'd mentioned up front, we've really, shot off and really took off in a short period of time. A lot of, 35 plus applications plus all the various changes we're making in a relatively short period. So, our timeline of how to develop, it's very quick. We are a very agile company in terms of how we can push out new products to add value. And we have a release every quarter. And we'll keep everybody up to date on when our next release is and what all will be releasing. But just kind of to keep in mind, we have a very quick speed at which we can develop and deploy new products and new apps. But a few just to really highlight on are the few I'm going to show right here. So one is our Pad Progress. So our Pad Progress app, what it's doing is, it gives a lot of feature and functionality to, your operations at the time. So whether I'm actively fracking on a well, I'm wirelining a well, if I've already perfed a well, it'll actually highlight that and designate that in these colors, as you can see right here. The red right here, it'll also designate if I'm seeing any NPT. So this is a great app to just kind of a bird's eye view, from either if they're management or the completions engineer, see where things are at, see how things are going operationally. But a big thing, especially for data quality and reliability that we're adding in, is the ability of a stream box status. So what this shows is the ability to, when we do have boxes online, offline, which basically is showing when the field is on or off, how quick are we getting this data and information? So again, it shows how, quick everything's coming in, how we have a 1 second view, 0 to no latency from that standpoint. So again, that level of reliability, it also shows, the data you're getting in, you have that, and you can see that. Another thing we're going to add here as well, the ability to denote skip stages. So if that happens, so really anything kind of operationally you're seeing, well to well, stage to stage, we can visualize that, show that. I touched on our alerts feature, but we're also revamping some pieces of those alerts. So really just kind of and a couple things to keep in mind are just the various alerts that we have. Now we do have, type of screen out, plug slip type of alerts, predictors, but we're working on ways to make them even more accurate, even, closer of a time range. So we know, of course, with those alerts, they happen in a matter of seconds. So really making sure all those are having that view, testing, showing that, as well as the ability more of on our wireline side to detect when plugs are set. So if they're on or off depth, or for perforations are on or off depth. So comparing design versus actual to, again, enable more of these smart alerts so that everyone can see and visualize it from that standpoint. Another couple features as well, NPT App Changes. So what we showed as kind of how a bird's eye view of how that looks. One thing we're going to be changing with this is the ability to have categories and subcategories. So similar to how I showed on our first slide, information of our pie chart. So now, instead of just having all our subcategories, if I had, information where, pump maintenance or iron leaks, I can actually group them into, overall arcing themes like frac NPT, wireline NPT, all of that. Top of that, as well as the ability to include vendor names into this app itself, because in a big feature is the ability to push this back into Wellview. So make notes, see what vendors, track the performance of said vendors. All of that from that standpoint really helps, again, operationally making decisions, ways that we can improve and ways we can target quicker instead of having to rely on more latent information from that standpoint. Another thing as well is our assets and permissions feature. So one thing I wanted to touch on, and I brought it up a little while ago with the ability, let's say a customer wants to have maybe a frac vendor or other providers access to Corva. So again, they could use it to all be on the same page, use it to also leverage operations, because again, they're the ones, performing the work, seeing it from the field basis. So we've changed and revamped how we can view that and show that. So we instead, at first it was only an asset or restriction based on only per frac fleet, but now we could restrict it by a program basis. So all frac fleets in the company could all be restricted and used. And what that means is, if we want to have and grant certain access to certain people where they could just read only, they could see that. It just makes this process a lot more easy. And something, especially when, I'd love to do it when we're doing more one-on-ones, we can dive into, a little more closely from that. And then as well, the different ways to view various pads on the same dashboard. So we're revamping that piece of the asset. So again, makes the look of on the dashboard view very easy to look between the two, makes that very seamless. Again, if we're seeing similar performance trends, parameters, all of that, we could visualize seeing that information. So that really recaps, what we have and what we want to show today. But really what we want to do now is open the floor for questions from the folks on the webinar.
Thank you, Michael. Perfect. Looks like we still have some questions coming in. We had a few preliminary submissions as well as 5 or 6 questions through the Q&A feature. So let's get to question number 1. What hardware is required at the well site?
Yes, and that's a very good question, and something I wanted to kind of touch on a little more closely. So as I mentioned when starting the demonstration is, and it's a common question, we do plug into the frac van, the wireline logger, so on and so forth, but there's a way in which it has to be done. So something we've seen, especially via this side of the industry, is Corva started on the drilling side, and on the drilling side, there's relatively an easier way of pulling this data in. It's all via a standard language called WITSML, and it's typically every rig in the U.S. or even around the world, they're all outfitted with what's called electronic drilling recorder. They can actually send this information via cloud into WITSML. The completion side is different, and that's something really what Corva does very well. And it's an interesting problem to have, because on the completion side, we're having to pull in streams from so many different sources, whether it's the frac van, it's the wireline logger, pump down. If we want to map water transfer, want to map proppant silos, coil units, they're all different, and there's not really a standard industry way to pull it in, ingest it, and visualize it. What we've done is we've combated that and developed a solution for it. So it's called a Corva Streambox, and it's a very small piece of equipment. It's minimally invasive. The installation takes probably only about 30 minutes at most, and it's literally you plug in the box into the serial port, let's say in the frac van, into Warrior in the logger, same with pump down, and just a data acquisition system. And then from there, we're able to aggregate all that information, beam it to our cloud, and then go from that standpoint into the apps that we have. So again, it's very quick installation, and there's no tech required for it. The vendor itself could just plug in the box, and you're pretty much all set and ready to go. So it's very quick and very easy to do that. And via that, that's how, and that's really all we have. In the box, it's probably the size of an internet modem. It's very, very small and very minimally invasive and easy to install from that standpoint.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Second question is, what are the typical benefits your clients see from the Corva completions platform?
So typical benefits, and we see a wide array of benefits that we have, but the big pieces, and kind of to recap, what we had up front is kind of our 4 key components, is the ability to be a comprehensive platform. So we can transcend from using your drilling data to then help you out and make you have better frac operations, wireline, closing the loop again from milling out plugs after the frac and wireline operations are done. So really that whole piece is a comprehensive piece of our solution. That's a huge aspect. And again, so much of what we do and enable is, again, and we say it a lot here at Corva, if you can't measure, you can't improve. So, the data integration, getting that in, being comprehensive, enabling more fast decision-making from that standpoint. So then quickly, if I need to just tweak my FR, if I need to tweak my pump schedule, if I get an alert that, allows me to avoid 2 days of downtime, all of that, it's invaluable in terms of your operations. And in terms of what we can do, it provides a ton of value. Top of that is our data quality. So again, our automated processes of, our activity detection algorithms. So as I showed on the frac side, how we can break everything out and automatically know when we're starting and ending a stage, as well as our team of experts here in Houston. So everybody here, they all have their previous completion engineers, frac engineers, company men that are all QA/QCing the data. And we actually have as well, and Cody mentioned it in his call, a chat function. So the ability to actually intercom in is what it's called. It's a blue feature, a little blue ball you saw at the bottom right of my screen. And they could talk to one of these individuals day or night, 24/7, any time of the day, whether they would like training, whether they would like a dashboard configured a certain way. And questions just about how Corva works. We have all that feature. And the big piece of that as well is all of that communication, we're judged on the times that we respond. So we all try to respond with that within 25 seconds. And again, it just enables that customer service and decision-making. And then as well, of course, our integrated analytics, the ability to, as I showed, all of kind of your pertinent metrics and mobility, we have that ability to show and then the enterprise aspect of our solution. So ability to, go to other platforms, use those with the QA/QC data, enable decision-making across teams a lot more effectively and quickly from that standpoint.
Very good. And I guess on my end, I would add, I had the opportunity to visit with a few of our clients recently, and it looks like the procurement function also uses the platform to double check on the propane and chemical usage when they're auditing the vendor tickets, as well as actually the data science teams. Data sculpting and data processing is a big deal as they go through subsurface optimization pieces. So it saves them myriad of hours in terms of data processing times. All right, Michael, the third question is there any latency while streaming data?
And the quick answer to that is no. We have not experienced latency streaming data, and we've developed, and the reason that is we've developed a lot of partnerships with various communication vendors at various parts of the country, of the world, to make sure that is not an issue, especially because it's very important to stream this data, to get it in real time, to make these decisions effectively.
All right, you've covered that in the demo, but let's recap again. What are the most popular completions apps?
Yes. So again, just kind of a quick recap, things that I would, like I said, probably the key ones that I would show, and again, our well comparison application. So again, compiling your pressure rate data with all of your consumables and values, all of that pumped, because it makes it very quick and very easy to see from that standpoint and track, hey, are we seeing, a trend of a lot higher FR usage, lower FR usage? Do we need to really use all of this? And I touched on it briefly there, but with a lot of the means of data analysis, there's so much more data that's being pulled in on the completion side that a lot of people know what to do with. I feel as an industry, we're seeing a lot of, we're now getting from, hey, we're able to actually stream the data, see it. What do we do to analyze it? And that's really what this does. Is it's a combination of, it is in near real time. You're able to see all this information, look at all that, visualize it, and show it. The TVD versus MD is also a very, very useful app because, again, from the knowledge and the information from that drilling phase, I could actually see and tweak, and it illuminates a lot of the, some of the part burn and things of that nature that I could have from that standpoint if we're starting to see some of these other things. So, if I'm noticing, I am out of zone over a couple of stages, or maybe I am in zone, but just based on the area I'm in and just the nature of what I'm trying to deal with, there's a lot of issues. I may need to tweak pump schedules. I may need to do all that from that standpoint. So those are big, very, very big features. The others as well, our ability in it's your treatment plot, your wireline traces, and really correlating that to the alerts are very important. So again, if I'm wanting to make sure, and if I'm trying to do investigations on if I pumped off guns, I could look back, see that. So again, tie alerts to make sure I don't even get to the point of where I'm pumping too hard on my wireline BHA and causing issues from that standpoint. So that's a very, very useful feature. And like I said, integrating that with the teams, integrating that with Slack. So again, can enable that decision making a lot more quickly. You can see, visualize, look at that from that standpoint.
Thank you, Michael. We have about 10 minutes remaining, so let's get through the rest of the questions. A question from the Permian operator. Are your algorithms able to delineate operations in a simul-frac operation? Sorry, guys. Stimulating two wellbores with the same frac crew. What percentage of your current ops are simul-frac? Good question.
Yes, and that's a very good question. And the quick answer is yes, we can. And it is interesting because this is, especially in the Permian, we've seen this with our customers, a trend that's really starting to take hold. So I would say out of our probably our whole base, we're seeing probably even 20% to 30% going towards simul-frac. And the way we can do that and visualize and see that, it's just really kind of how the frac van actually separates it out. We basically could separate it out into two different lines, a line A, a line B. So then, we could see two different treatment plots on those two wells, able to see all that information, visualize, show it, and then the same with all of your analytics. So in terms of how we can connect, it's actually pretty seamless. It's still a similar process of the stream box connects to the van, and then the van's able to split up via what they're seeing in there. But the same visualization you have in Corva just on a standard zipper, you'd still be able to see that and visualize that from that standpoint.
Good, thank you, Michael. Another question is, how are you delineating NPT events? For example, if we have a leak in iron, does the treatment engineer have to define it? in the system, or does Corva pick it up?
That's a very good point. And it's a common question that we have. So as we stand today, and I touched on this as well, we do not have any personnel on location or any individuals from that standpoint. So our footprint's very low. Again, our installation of how our equipment is small. So very, very low footprint from, either safety side or just, the ease of convenience. In terms of delineating that, we are dependent upon the reporting feature. So we typically look at it in terms of what we're getting from a report. Now, in the future, on a lot of our customers, they're just using Corva as the means to input that information. So again, if they want to push it to other or pull, if Wellview wants to pull from it, they could do that and see that. Now, we are working on ways to, because again, we will not always know what the NPT is necessarily on, and it's always up to the consultant on site to determine that. But in terms of some of our applications, so I showed swap over times, I showed time analysis. We are developing ways of which we can not necessarily auto detect what the NPT delineated is, but that it is some type of NPT. So for instance, swap over times, we're going to add in a feature to where, we have a certain designated time that the swap over should take place. So let's say it's 30 minutes. Outside that 30 minutes, a NPT bucket is going to automatically pop in, and then the user could then delineate what type of NPT it's on. But again, since we're not actually on location and could see all the various features, we can't always see, but that's not out of the possibility or the realm of the future, especially as we tie into more features out on location.
Okay, great. Are there future plans to deploy machine learning models to predict events like pumps failure or a screen out?
Yes, so the quick answer to that is yes. So in terms, like I said, I talked about our alerts feature. Our alerts feature would be the quickest, especially for a screen out. So if we're seeing trends, and it's something that's very interesting, and it's something that we're going to be working on in the future, is a type of, it's predictive in terms of your your offset wells, your previous wells, all of that. So it's almost like a frac roadmap. We have a similar app on the drilling side called a driller's roadmap, but what it's going to do is it's going to pull in information, via a certain formation, lateral length, casing size, basically all the effective parameters of frac treating pressure. All of that, it's going to use that to really see and use, as an FR tool. So a roadmap of, hey, do I have the ability to, one, I can up my FR, lower my FR. Is there room on the table to make sure I'm not exceeding a certain pressure limit to then could lead to screen out? So that's going to be one aspect of it. But a secondary aspect of it is, again, any potential, mitigating factors that we're seeing. So like I said, things shutting down, preventative pieces for the screen out itself, some of that. Now, for pump maintenance and measures like that, that is something too we're working on. So we are working on ways to see, basically to tie into the pumps. So as it stands today, where we sit is, we're typically tied into the frac van or to the wireline logger. But as more of these frac vans are outfitted with sensors, ways to monitor their pumps, we could stream that in as well. So utilizing that, for fuel usage. So some of those apps I showed, all of that. That's also going to be stuff we're developing the visualizations for all of that from that standpoint. So the short answer is yes, for machine learning model using predictive ways, like I said, from either previous wells or we're seeing on a current well, especially for screen outs, plug slips, and then as well on top of that, looking for ways, like trying to for pump maintenance or certain problem areas if we're seeing failure with a lubricator, so on and so forth, ways to look at that and see that in the comprehensive view.
Okay, very good. Okay, Michael, we have a question, and I think I will address that one. Can you comment on your data transfer protocol? Are you using WITSML? I'm hearing you aren't WITSML compliant, and that makes data transfer to legacy systems such as Peloton an issue. If not, why isn't Corva using WITSML? So we are WITSML compliant. We are WITSML 1.3.1 and 1.4.1 compliant. But yeah, I would like to schedule any follow-up from the person who posed the question. Either Michael or myself can address that, any concerns you might have heard. And I guess we still can submit the questions. The last question that we have is again related to the NPT. So where is the NPT data coming from? Again, is it from Wellview, or does Corva calculate this somehow from the rig side calculators?
Yes. And just to reiterate, so as it stands today, And like I said, currently we do not have any personnel on location. So for, more granular delineated NPT. So if, whether that be on a blender or waiting on prop and so on and so forth, some of that we're still working and thinking of ways to include that information. But as of today, the way we pull it in, it is via when the customer sends us their Wellview report, it's automatically pulled in. We actually parse out that information and upload it into Corva. Now, we do have two different other things happening. So some customers are actually using Corva as their means to just load in their NPT information. Because again, they understand that, because Corva is so comprehensive and we cover and touch every piece and can, Wellview could pull from us, so on and so forth. Plus we QA/QC all this data. They just use us as the conduit to basically make sure that information's sent over. So again, because we can integrate with everything else, it makes it a lot easier. So again, that's a lot of times some consultants are putting that actually into Corva. Now, like I said, in terms of ways to calculate some of this NPT, we are developing certain ways for it. So I mentioned swap over times, same for time analysis. So including ways of, let's say for a swap over time, I want only, if I'm in the Permian, I want to designate only 30 minutes for swap over for frac or for wireline. If it goes any time over that, I want NPT to automatically record. We're implementing that piece, but now there will always have to be, and we're going to put in basically like a checkbox. What is the NPT type you want to classify this as? But again, it's automatically delineating it as a type of NPT. And then we just ask the user or, the consultant company, whoever, just delineate that type. So then if they does want to be, or Wellview wants to pull from it to push it in, we can do that, show that information. So, and then on top of that, as we get tied into other sensors, other pieces where we can tell clear failure of, let's say, iron or equipment, that can then be used and then input into Corva to automatically calculate that.
Very good. Perfect timing, Michael. Thank you. I'd like to also thank our audience for active participation during today's event. A Corva account manager will reach out to you soon to address any additional questions, as well as to provide the link to the recording of this webinar. Thank you very much and have a great week.